Good morning and welcome to this special New Year's Eve edition of Saturday with Claire Byrne. We are here with you live until 1 o'clock today with a host of well-known faces who've bravely agreed to see 2016 out with a song. Our singing politicians will be joined by Patricia King from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions and Daniel McConnell, political editor of The Examiner, both of whom are ready to raise the roof in song. Later on in the show we're going to find out what's happening stateside ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. We'll also speak to a prison officer about life inside Portlaoise prison at the height of the Troubles, and we'll have more song and chat in the second hour of the show too. So let me introduce you to our guests now for this part of the morning. Michael Fitzmaurice, Roscommon Galway Independent TD, is here. Finian McGrath, Minister of State and TD for Dublin Bay North. Senator Fintan Warfield, Sinn Féin. Patricia King, as I mentioned, General Secretary of ICTU. Daniel McConnell from The Examiner. Michael O'Regan, Parliamentary Correspondent with The Irish Times, and the only non-singer here today, Michael, but we're working on it.
Claire, the Irish people have suffered a lot over the decades, centuries.
This is true. It might be
they should not be inflicted with my quote singing voice, unquote.
Jim Sheridan is our musical director, and Jim, we're going to put you to work straight away, and we're going to put Minister Finian McGrath to work straight away. What are you going to sing?
Thank you very much, Claire, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to sing an old Bellamy Brothers song called Let Your Love Flow.
Off you go.
Especially for them.
Well done, Finian. A great start there from Finian McGrath. Take a seat there now. We might talk a little bit of politics before we go to our next song. Daniel, just reading all the comment pieces, the end of year stuff, and everybody is saying that this is a government of inertia, afraid to do anything. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Brendan Howlin was the one who coined the phrase the do nothing Doyle, and I think there is an element of that. I mean, there's precious little legislation going through, and I think it's, you know, there's a general sense that nothing's going to happen. Any big decisions are being parked and long-fingered.
How long can they get away with that, though?
I think there's a very short time limit on this government. A lot of Fine Gael would say if they make the summer they'll be doing well. Others are a bit more optimistic that if they might get a second budget in. But look, very few would say that, you know, this 3-year deal or the 3-budget deal with Fianna Fáil is going to see the end of its days. I just think the personalities aren't there. I think there's a lot of animus and hostility between Finian and his colleagues in the Independent Alliance and their Fine Gael counterparts. They mightn't say it here on shows like this, but you know, the reality is, you know, and I think ultimately what you're seeing is this is a system that can't work long term, and I think we're going to have to see a kind of a clearing of the air, and the only way to do that is another general election.
But plenty of commentators said that it wouldn't last as long as it has lasted.
It has, but I think there was a general sense after the stress of the election in February, and I think the toll of the interregnum on everybody. No one wanted another election quickly, and I think that's the only thing that has saved the day so far. I would think also, Pascal Donoghue and Michael Noonan showed a bit of skill in getting a very difficult budget through, because not only did they have to kind of keep their own side happy and growing expectations, they also had to kind of keep Fianna Fáil, like the Derek O'Learys and the Michael McGraths and Fianna Fáil happy well. So that was a very tricky, complicated process. And they, you know, like you say, many said the budget wouldn't get through. It did get through, but you're now facing into water charges. You're facing into the public sector pay issue, which I think is going to be very toxic, and then you've got housing, and then you've got other issues like Brexit, but bin charges will come on the agenda again this year. So there are a lot of issues that are kind of ticking time bombs that will sooner or later will trip this government up, I think.
Okay, Patricia, the public sector pay issue is going to be huge, and that's kicking off the new year really with the negotiations starting around the Garda pay deal. Then we've the Public Sector Pay Commission renegotiating Lansdowne. Will Pascal Donoghue be able to hold the line as he has done?
Well, it's always very difficult to predict what way. It's a complex situation. And
but didn't you say here with me one time that you would want for workers that you represent what the Guards got?
Yeah, well, there's no question but that an anomaly was created. Actually, some commentators believe the anomaly was entirely created by the Labour Court. The Guards had been in discussions directly with the Department of Justice for a considerable number of weeks. The Labour Court made a small number of adjustments to the Department of Justice proposals. Out of that, you have then some
so
differences.
The Department of Justice, you're saying, came up with the figure ultimately.
The Department of Justice had gone a long way towards developing the proposals to the Guards. When it went to the Labour Court then made one or two other adjustments.
Why then was was Michael Noonan and Pascal Donoghue so taken aback then by that ruling when it happened?
Now, Claire, I wouldn't ever even remotely dare to predict why people of such ilk get taken aback or are astonished by certain things. When you deal in industrial relations, as I do, you deal with it as you find it and as it comes to you. And the holy all of it is, after the proposals that were ultimately and finally came out of the Labour Court, which, as I say, were a combination of the Department of Justice and some adjustments by the Labour Court, after that happened, clearly there was a difference between what had been on offer to the Guards and what was on offer generally in the Lansdowne Road Agreement to public servants. That has
so to keep
created
the Guards
an
on the beat, you're saying the government, fully knowing what they were doing, gave them what they gave them?
Well, what I just know the facts of the situation, and I know that the Department of Justice were in those discussions and that papers were exchanged between the parties and that the Labour Court then made some adjustments. But the Guards were not part of IC2. They are in an association, obviously. They're not in a trade union yet anyway. And so from our perspective, the Public Services Committee of Congress had in good faith entered into an agreement with the government on foot of ballots that had held with our members on the Lansdowne Road Agreement, and an anomaly has occurred. Now, there is an agreement in principle that the discussions will commence around the second week of January to deal with that anomaly. The Public Services Pay Commission then is in session, has already heard submissions from various parties. I suspect that they will take at least February, March and April to engage in their work, which will involve some degree of research and so on, and come up with what they're statutorily required to do. Which
Are workers prepared to wait, though, given that the Guards are going to be enjoying their increased pay?
Well,
while all of this is going on?
Well, I think that the Public Services Committee of Congress from the second week in January will be involved in a very intensive set of discussions to ensure that all public servants are treated on a fair and equitable basis. And that involves two moieties. It involves, one, the anomaly issue, and then it involves the opening of much more intensive discussions for replacement to Lansdowne Road, all of which I would expect to happen in the first half of the coming year.
Okay, Michael Fitzmaurice, will you make your way to the microphone there while we carry on this chat and prepare yourself for your musical performance? I understand that Michael Fitzmaurice, Michael O'Regan, is going to be singing The Gambler, and he did take a gamble this year, didn't he? Let's talk about him while he's preparing himself.
He did take a gamble. He's a very, very shrewd man. I think he probably won. Had he gone in with Fine Gael, he'd probably be a Minister of State now. Dennis Naughton, Senior Minister in the same constituency. I think Michael made the right decision to stay out. He's he's a gambler in the Kenny Rogers sense, and I think he sang the right tune from his own point of view.
And he's a word or two to say about that later.
And Michael is not. I see. There's a list is always banded around of people who could fall in if certain people fall out. Michael is not on that list.
No, I mean he can speak for himself obviously, but he won't. No, it's too late now. He's in the opposition. He's doing very, very well. He won't prop up this government. There are others, perhaps, who might. Noel Grealish, maybe. Michael Harty. But, Claire, Finian and his colleagues are going nowhere. They're ministers, most of them. Kevin the Boxer Moran will exchange with Sean Kenny next August.
Will he?
He will, of course.
Will he?
They're ministers.
I hope Claire
and Fine Gael is coming to the slow realisation that actually people like Finian and Shane Ross, they're entitled to their views on matters of national policy. Took a while for Fine Gael to get this right. Finian is doing very well as a minister. The Independents Alliance are doing well. Fianna Fáil, I think, actually, are boxed into a role in opposition they might find it difficult to get out of. Because, and I kind of disagree with Daniel, I think this government might, nothing's happening, by the way. There's absolute inertia. But they just might get through the next budget. What's going to happen, by the way, to Enda? Will be a big question.
That is the big question.
Yeah, he discovered his mojo. And you see, they all discovered their mojo. Fianna Fáil discovered their mojo. The Healy-Rae brothers have mojo on speed. By the way, just before Michael starts, Claire, Miriam Lord, my colleague, is making some predictions this morning. And one of the things she says is, when the Dáil returns in January, Enda Kenny tells the gas TDs that he has rediscovered his va-va-voom. Now, she says, that turns out it was in the back of the same press where he found his mojo. Right beside the spuds.
Right, Michael, Cupid, Finny, we will let you respond to all of that. We will. We'll take a song now. Michael Fitzmaurice singing The Gambler. Fitzmaurice there with the Gambler. Take a seat there, Michael, and we'll have a chat now. We might start off with Finian though, because you did have a few grenades lobbed at you there, Finian. You're on the road, on the road to nowhere.
Well, first of all, I strongly disagree with Michael and particularly with Danny as well in relation to nothing is happening in government. First of all, if you look at the facts, let's deal with the facts here now. Since the government has taken over now, and we're gone into 7 or 8 months at this stage, unemployment is dropping. We've seen the situation. The government is working well. We're building development relationships. We're also, we'll say, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see 98 million is being spent on homelessness around the city, which is a very important thing. In relation to my own area, 1.68 billion, that's up 96.3 million on disability services throughout the state, which means residential places, respite places, home supports for people and families with disabilities. So when people say nothing is going on, I strongly disagree. It's a different situation. I accept that point, Claire. We have a minority government, but the reality is that we are working ourselves behind the scenes on our specific ministries, and at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, the government is working very, very well. Of course there are times when we have to look over at the opposition parties, and particularly Fianna Fáil, to get stuff through, but we're actually working reasonably well with them.
Do more than look over at them. You have to get there.
But I would interact regularly with Fianna Fáil TDs regularly, and from my knowledge, and I know that Danny and Michael will have a different view, they are telling me, and I believe them, that they're going to guarantee 3 budgets. So if I can get 3 budgets over the line, from our point of view, I know in the disability sector, I will deliver in the issues that I promised to do it. So I would need the 3 budgets though to reform and invest in disability services, cystic fibrosis services, places like Beaumont Hospital. These are the issues that are important for people, and these are the issues that we want to do our best. And if I can walk out after 3 years with 5 good things done as a Minister of State for Disabilities, I'll be very, very proud, and I look anybody straight in the face in relation to these particular issues, because there is activity going on, but there is the sections of the people who are commenting on politics that don't buy what's going on. There's a new politics. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are never going to get this overall majority. We're going to always have coalition governments, and we need to get used to that, and you're always going to have independence. And by the way, I disagree with what you said about Michael earlier on there, Michael Fitzmaurice. Michael, as an independent, of course he doesn't support the government, but he votes on issues, I've seen him in the Dáil, that he thinks are good for the country. If something is bad for that he thinks is bad for it, he'll vote against it. So that's the part of new politics. We're trying to be very, very sincere,
now you
credible,
cynical old politics.
I mean, the bottom line is, and that was a great party political broadcast for the Independence Alliance, Finian, but like, the truth of the matter is, precious little is going through. Big decisions, difficult decisions are being long fingered. And yes, you're pursuing your own kind of disability agenda, and fair play to you. But by and large, the country is not being run effectively. The country is not being run properly. It's a fudged government. You know, as Pascal Donoghue, who I've interviewed over described as an underdog government. It's fighting for survival just even to stay standing, let alone get anything done. And I don't think it's good enough. Quite honestly, I think it's,
Well, what's not being done that should be being done?
Do you want to talk about the health service, homelessness, housing issues? All the issues that we
homelessness is every time the government trots out this nonsense about what they're achieving in homelessness, actually is quite off-putting. There's a humanitarian issue regarding homelessness in this country. It is shocking.
Yeah, but it's putting the money in, Michael. We accept that reality.
So the government is moving in homelessness. It has to move on any government. I accept, actually, Finian is doing very well within his own brief. I know that, much to the slight resentment, I think, of perhaps some in Fine Gael. But what we're not witnessing is the kind of radical policies that any government should have coming out of a terrible recession. And it's all compromise. Endless committees, endless cabals, endless assemblies, position papers, review groups. Just kick it down the line and hope to goodness that you'll stay in power. Mm-hmm. And of course you have Fianna Fáil on the opposition benches pretending that this new politics is working. They're watching Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin is watching Fianna Fáil. Fianna Fáil is wondering when they might pull the plug. They're hoping, of course, that the government will implode. It won't. Finian and his colleagues are very, very happy in government. Fine Gael want to remain there. And then, of course, you have Fine Gael backbenchers.
But if you're Fianna Fáil, aren't you just willing to sit there and just rebuild, bide your time, wait for your numbers to be right, don't rock the boat?
Yeah. I suspect it may not work for them, though, because if you look at the opinion polls, Fine Gael, in power a long time now, they're thereabouts with Fianna Fáil. And also, come whatever breaks up this government, the voters may look and say, well, was this the right thing to do? One Fianna Fáil TD, who's privately very, very concerned about this new politics, said to me, what particular issue could we bring down this government on?
Just on the housing, if I might, Claire, I think it is really important to say this. We have to get into a space, regardless of what political situation the government finds itself in. We have a housing emergency. We have a really deep policy failure here, and it's a policy failure by all the policymakers.
But that's been acknowledged, surely.
But it's not acknowledged with action. What needs to happen now is,
but what has Simon Coveney been doing?
You saw yesterday, we've endless strategies appearing and so on, and they're in some cases probably very well worked out and so on. But if you're one of the 1,200 families that's in homelessness, and that's been added to by one family a week, and I have no reason to believe that won't continue to happen in 2017. Now, we have a wherewithal in this state like we never had before, because we have NAMA in possession of a huge amount of land and a huge amount of properties. And we need to get, and indeed our own movement in December, our own Executive Council launched in Cork through the One Cork project, that there should be a municipal housing authority. Joe Flynn, who's the General Secretary of SIPTU, launched that. And there should be that. They should work with NAMA. They should identify the properties in a very short space of time. Actually, it is feasible to have all of those families who are currently homeless housed. If you had that intervention of the state into that, we cannot continue to have a strategy which is built on just the old way of doing things in land and housing is no longer feasible, and we have to have a radical change to that.
Michael Fitzmaurice, to come to you, just going back to what Finian said, and he was listing out all the things that he wanted to do in his own area of interest in his own brief. If you were in there, you could be driving your agenda in the same way.
First of all, I stood by my principles on the day in question. Second of all, I would get very frustrated with some of the things over the last 6 months. I probably, unfortunately, I wouldn't have the patience of some people. And I see a lot of the stuff that's going on. And in fairness, Finian, he is trying to drive his own stuff. But there's a lot of problems in there. And there's a lot of stuff that is being talked about within the programme for government that it isn't being delivered on yet. But in fairness, like one thing I will say, and I'd be as critical of anyone as any politician, it's 6 or 7 months sort of bedding down this government. But I tell you, the gloves should come off from now on for the simple reasons. The programme for government there, when you talk about homelessness, we are hitting a tsunami of repossessions in the new year. What I've noticed in the last 2 months is that working class people that have jobs are in trouble with their mortgages. And there is a thing in the programme for government to solve that. In my opinion, in the homelessness in Dublin, and you think, being honest about it, there seems to be only one place in Ireland at the moment when it comes to homelessness, that the rest of the country doesn't exist. But there is people in trouble in other parts of the country. But what we have to watch as well is that, unfortunately, I've seen it in my own family, there are people that has underlying problems, and no matter what you do for them, you could give them 5 houses, but they're not going to live in them. And until we tackle that side of the problem, and also, we have to, councils don't know how to build houses. Let's be honest. Let's cut to the
anymore.
chase. But they don't know how to. They never did, to be quite frank about it.
They used to build houses.
But they weren't good at it. They're not efficient at it. What you have to put, and in fairness, but they were never good at it. When you look at efficiency, when you look at when you can build numbers of houses, who built the numbers of houses down through the years? And in fairness to Coveney, and I look at when he was in agriculture, I fought with him every day of the week because I always said he was a big man's operator in the line of farmers. But in fairness to him, he's trying to bring in stuff as quick as he can. But you're not going to wave a magic wand and put up 40,000 houses overnight. We talked within at the government talks about NAMA, what they had. They had something like 300 properties, I think, at the time. And a lot of those properties were down the country where no one wanted to go. This is the problem. And that's the reality of it.
In fairness, even at the National Dialogue there, which was held recently, and I attended the workshop with the Minister in relation to housing, and he told us, for instance, that there are 27,000 sites around the periphery area of Dublin, albeit in smaller fragmented parcels, which have planning permission. Now, NESC, which is the National Economic Social Council, have developed a really good document in relation to land management and housing management. And the government really, I would urge them to take account of the propositions and proposals that are in that.
But the one thing I'd say to you, Patricia,
because it means land price, for instance, is a huge contributor to the failure of the housing market. Okay. Now, they need to get involved in dealing
quick
with
response,
that.
Michael, and
Can I
then we
just
have
say
to
one
take a
thing?
break.
The first thing you have to do is have a vision for your country, and this is one thing I would criticise the government over. We have no vision of the 204 billion, what we're doing with it. If we done a deal with Europe, I'm not talking about write-downs or anything, I'm talking about doing a proper deal. We need to give ourselves breathing space in the middle to be able to afford to do the housing, give pay increases if you're going to do that, and all the different problems in health. And until we make that space in the middle, we are going nowhere. And on top of that, we can borrow money now cheaper than ever we could in our life for infrastructural projects. And if we're not going to do that and have a vision of where we're going as a nation for the next 5 or 10 years, you know what's going to happen in 5 years' time? We're going to borrow money at 4 times the price of what it is now.
Yeah, my
and
only
we won't be
point,
able to pay
though,
for
Mike,
it.
my only point is that we have the appalling vista of 7,000 people, half of them children, with no homes. And we have hundreds of thousands of vacant properties, and we have hundreds of thousands of acres which are being hoarded.
Correct.
Right? Now, if you are living in the Netherlands or if you are living in Germany, those governments have given themselves the right to have compulsory purchase where they require it. Even in the UK, they have a housing and community agency which manages the land and the distribution of land for building. So we actually are beholden quite strongly still to the
but
developers.
Patricia, unless
and
we get
to that
efficient at
market.
building houses,
We-
there are middle class people out there working that can't afford a house. And unless we get efficient at building houses and get the prices down, because in Dublin it's astronomical at the moment.
Well, I would
houses are.
argue-
Listen, the
I would
government have
argue-
a plan and the government have vision. For example, in relation to some of this petitioners raised, in 2017 we are providing funding for 3,000 individuals and families to move out of emergency accommodation. There's your vision, there's your plan. Of course I take on board your points about social housing and some of the projects you mentioned there, and they're the kind of issues that the government should listen
Okay,
to,
I have to,
and
I
they're
have
the
to
kind of
take a
issues
break.
that I
We'll
will
come,
bring
we'll
to
come
cabinet
back
as
to
well.
this. More song, more chat after this quick break. Welcome back. Now, Daniel McConnell is political editor with The Examiner, but has hidden talents, Daniel, I'm told. You're a singer. You sing in a choir, is that right?
Well, I have played in bands and everything for years and years and years, and just before Christmas I was part of the Glasnevin Music Society, and we did a thing in the concert hall on the 3rd of December. So one of the songs we did on that night was Can't Help Falling in Love with You by Elvis, so that's what I said I'd do today.
Great. And is this your radio debut?
No,
singing
Jesus,
radio?
no, in bands, look, I've been on 2FM and I've been on in various things.
Ah, sure, look, don't feel a bit sorry.
I'm out of here.
That was when I was like 18, 19, Claire, so it's a few
And now
years
he's
ago.
21, yeah.
You're an old
Danny
hand,
always
an
wants
old
me in a
hand.
boy band, Claire. I always tell you this.
You and me, Finian, you and me.
Off you go.
Take this.
That was fantastic. Shattering any received wisdom about political hacks.
Standard has gone way up, Claire, since I started.
Thank you very
Shane
much,
Ross sings
Daniel.
that to Enda before each cabinet meeting.
Oh, that's fantastic, Michael O'Regan. I'm delighted you shared that with us. And thanks to our backing singers here as well, one of whom is Senator Fintan Warfield from Sinn Féin. Imagine we're sitting here, Senator, this time next year. Will Gerry Adams still be leader of Sinn Féin?
I don't know. That will be.
Are you allowed to express doubt about this?
I'm allowed to say whatever.
I'm only pulling your leg,
whatever I
only pulling your
feel.
leg. He's had a tricky year, though, hasn't he? Going from the election to the issue around Brian Stack and all the controversy surrounding that.
Yeah,
You know-
I mean, I'm not going to come in here and say it's an easy environment in which to make politics in. But an issue like this is often perpetrated by those who wish to prevent Sinn Féin from making politics, and I think that's part of it as well. But I think when I was on your show back just shortly after the election, back in May or June.
That's right, our last show of that season.
I'm kind of mortified. I had a bill on the table then, at that time, and I've learned to manage expectations. That bill will be coming before the Seanad in January. But it's taken on a bit of new meaning as well, because it's focused on lowering the voting age to 16. It's focused on active citizenship. And as we reflect on kind of a very changed year, and with an awful lot of noise, we need to offer people hope. We need to offer people an alternative, and we need to appeal to people's better sense as a citizen. And I think active citizenship, voting rights, is more important than ever, and that's taken on a bit of a new meaning since June.
And do you agree with this sense that nothing is getting done?
I would say that one of the very recently, Gino Kenny had a bill passed around medicinal cannabis. I think that's one of the good things that has actually happened, that we've we've progressed the conversation around drugs, and that the opposition have been part of that. I see Pat Leahy writing in today's opinion and analysis in the Irish Times about the far left and about Sinn Féin. He says, to their credit, and he referring to Sinn Féin, to their credit, they've consciously and deliberately avoided any racist and anti-immigrant pitch to voters. Sinn Féin certainly haven't consciously avoided any racist or anti-immigrant pitch to voters. I don't want credit for avoiding that. My politics are anti-racist. My politics are anti-fascist. And he mentions Apple as well. I think you can't review 2016 without, and it touches on the conversation you've had with Patricia, you can't review 2016 without reflecting on what was cloaked in this narrative of national self-interest was the Irish government's response to the European Commission ruling that Apple repay Ireland 13 billion plus interest in unpaid taxes.
That money was never going to come to us because it would have had to be shared with the other countries where
and
the money was earned.
And that's completely fine, but when corporations and the interests of corporations are taken to that extent, they come before the interests of workers' rights, they come before the environment, they come before public investment like housing, and they come before the interest of weaker states as well. I think that interest of weaker states actually was absent from the narrative around the whole Apple tax, and I think the left probably need to take a bit of responsibility for that as well, because the interest of weaker states were certainly left out of that debate.
Okay, let's talk about the Fine Gael leadership issue, Michael O'Regan. Let's come back to that, because Noel Whelan, writing in the Irish Times yesterday, said that this is going to be the big issue. If there is a leadership contest, if there is a new leader, that might be the one thing that upsets this delicate government, because a new leader mightn't be as interested in keeping Finian and his colleagues on side. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do, actually, yeah. If you look at Simon Coveney's, the bloody nose that he gave to Fianna Fáil on the rent cap before Christmas, much to the delight, by the way, of Fine Gael TDs. Now, the leadership at the moment is between Simon Coveney, Leo Varadkar, Francis Fitzgerald, with Pascal, a kind of dark horse, and Simon Harris, of course, can wait. It could, and it would also depend on the mood of the time. For instance, when, I think Noel Whelan may have referred to this, when Albert Reynolds took over from Charles Hawley.
He did indeed, yes.
Yeah, he wanted, he didn't like the coalition, temporary little arrangement, he said.
Progressive Democrats not interested.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Depending on the mood at the time, the new leader may decide this isn't working. Now, he or she may also decide, of course, we better give it time. But I suspect that the entire dynamic will change. And I think the problem won't come from getting on with the independent alliance, because I think the new leader will. I think it could be dealing with Fianna Fáil. And he or she may decide, looking at the polls, this arrangement isn't working, we'll go to the country on some particular issue. Okay. The thing, of course, Claire, is when will Enda go? I don't think Enda has any immediate intention to go. Now, publicly, of course, he has to say...
No, but there's no sign of it. There's no sign of it.
In fact, he was asked sometime...
Why would he go anyway?
Why would he go? And he's in a very strong position, because there's no great criticism of Taoiseach, actually. The problem is, Fine Gael TDs don't want him the face and the poster at the next election. But if you look at it this way, he's doing quite well as Taoiseach. He's politically the most successful Fine Gael leader in the history of the party, in that he got a back-to-back term. The other thing is, shortly before Christmas, he was entering questions in the Dáil on the Pope's visit. Now, the Pope is due in the summer of 2018, and that'll be in the run-up to the third budget Fianna Fáil is promising to underpin. He, in a casual Troyer remark, he mentioned that the Pope might come to knock. His own constituency, of course. So what an exit for the Taoiseach. Mm-hmm. He welcomes the Pope to knock. We see,
I suppose, if you're waiting for Enda to go, that's one way to look at it, but somebody just might, Daniel McConnell, make a move before then.
Certainly, I wrote a story about a month ago where I'd spoken to 6 Fine Gael ministers where they, university felt that he was going to be gone by the summer. And they felt that he, like the appetite for him to move on, because they all pointed to an analysis given by Brendan Griffin at the start of the summer, where an election can happen at any time, and given his stated promise that he won't lead them into the next government, when do you facilitate that changeover in an unstable environment? I think there was little appetite for it to happen then, but I would certainly think but you get to this summer, I was certainly seeing you'll start to see a lot of itchy fingers, I should say, within Fine Gael. I think there is also a kind of a hesitancy from the main pretenders. You know, the lessons of the heave of 2012 or 2010, I should say, loom large. You know, no one wants to kind of like come up against what they
the
came
cringe-worthy
up with, the heave. But I do think also, you know, that, you know, while Leo Varadkar is seen as the front runner, I think you cannot underestimate the chances that Simon Coveney will have when push comes to shove. I think there is a Conservative within Fine Gael that might just think Leo is a bit too cavalier or a bit too maverick for their tastes, and that's where also, you know, people are saying that, you know, some form of a compromise candidate like a Francis Fitzgerald or Pascal Donoghue may come into the fold as well.
Michael Fitzmaurice, would you be up for an election in 2017?
I don't see him going, but I think whoever is, you know, as Daniel has said, you have Coveney and you have Leo sort of siding up to each other, but tactically whoever makes the first move, it's going to be disastrous, because generally it is. They need to put what we'd call a wild rabbit in first to take him out, and then they need to fight it between them.
Sounds dangerous.
Well, no, but they need to put somebody in as a runner that's not going to get there, because whoever goes for him won't be popular in a certain section of it. And to be honest about it, the longer he stays there, the better he's helping Fianna Fáil. If Fianna Fáil pulled an election and Inda still there, it would be a fair help to them. And it'll be very interesting over the next 6 or 8 months to see what will happen, because I think myself that they are sizing him up, but everyone is afraid to make the move. It's like the girl in the dance hall that no one wants to is brave enough to go over and ask to dance.
I love Michael's analysis. Can I say, Claire, just the key thing from an independent alliance point of view is the programme for government, and we're trying to maximise our power within government and also use our influence to implement a lot of our policies. I wouldn't comment about the internal beings of Fine Gael or any political
you
party.
must hear the gossip though, Fine. What are they saying to you before the cabinet meetings when you have a coffee?
We have. I must say now, the so-called contenders, they're very, very affable. We work very, very close together. They all work well together and get on with life, and that's what they're focusing on their jobs. I know you guys have to earn a living and earn a crust and talk about the issues, but I think the major issue for the Independent Alliance is we want to get 3 budgets over the line. We want to implement our policies, and that's where we're at.
Would you be happy enough to serve with Taoiseach Leo Varadkar?
Absolutely, I have no problems as long as they implement the programme for government and the policies of the Independent Alliance. I'd be absolutely delighted to work with anybody.
Okay, Patricia King is getting ready to sing for us now. Patricia, what's your own singing background?
Oh, I sing regularly. It's a very narrow background, I have to say, in singing. I sing regularly in a very small church choir in Kilmechanic, in County Wicklow, where I'm from, and completely confine any performances to that group. So,
apart from today's a big change for you, right?
It is.
What are you going to sing for us?
I'm going to sing Annie's song.
Great. Well, look, the General Secretary of ICTU now, Patricia King, singing Annie's song. Well done, Patricia. Thank you very much. Accompanied by Jim Sheridan, who is our musical director today. We might take our ad break now, and we'll come back and we'll hear from a professional in a moment. Okay, you might hear Fintan Moorfield tuning up, and we let him get on with that in the background as we continue our discussions. Have you enjoyed the time in the Dáil, Michael?
When you have wins, you enjoy it. But at times it can be very frustrating. From someone like me that comes from making a decision, live by the sword or die by the sword, make a decision at what you're at every day of the week and get on with it, for better or worse. It moves ferociously slow. It can be ferociously frustrating. You go down the road a many a night and you'd be banging your head off the side of the car wondering, are you doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or are you happy in it or are you not? The days that you have wins are the days that you do good for people. That's the reward that's out of it. But I can tell you there are a lot of the other days and you wonder. Because sometimes I look at it and it seems to be a big game that's going on between the two big boys, and you wonder at the end of the day, is the vision, that's what I hate at the moment, that no one seems to have this 10, 12, 14 years down the road. Where are we going? Are we going to put in infrastructure? Are we going to build a house? Are we going to do the things that we need to do? And if you're shrewd in business, you make a decision now that will help you in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time. But unfortunately, within politics, they don't seem to have the guts to do that.
Mm-hmm. Did you not know that, though, before you went in there, that there would be a frustration around getting things done, that particularly as an independent and somebody who was going to be in opposition, that you weren't going to be able to get everything
done? Well, first
done?
of all, Claire, I was never in politics in my life before this. I went into the council and I was 6 months in it. No one, let's be honest, I wasn't this guru or the political correspondent that knew everything about what's going on. But I think that the honesty is needed. There's a lot of stuff goes on inside that's not reported on in the line. It's like a game that's actually going on in there. That there's no one, and no one is coming out saying we need to do X, Y, or Z for 10 years' time or 12 years' time. And I just worry. And I do have a problem. There are some very good senior civil servants, but there are some in there that never have a vision, only maybe that they'll do something when they're going to become Secretary General or something. And that's what you have to watch. And that's, I fight against the tide all the time. And sometimes if you're fighting the tide, you can get very disillusioned.
Mm-hmm. And exhausted by it, I'd say.
Yeah. Look, you put in, there's no, in fairness, people give out about politicians, but any of us, everyone puts in 12 or 14, 15 and 16 hours every day. People say you're on your holidays. You don't be on holidays. You do charity stuff on Stevens's Day. You're out there, your phone is on 24/7. And this is the stuff that no one, you'll see the media reporting that we drank so much in the bar. We don't drink in the bar, most of us. It's the people that come in that fills it every day, that likes to look in at the Dáil Bear. But this bullshit goes on in the whole circle in there that really is frustrating.
Claire, I think the big problem is, and I take Michael's point about the hours worked, because I think anyone who's actually is interacting with politics or is involved in politics see the hours that politicians do. I think what the problem is that how much of it is actually done for the betterment of the country as opposed to getting yourself re-elected. There's the kind of constituency stuff and the kind of the showing the face.
Yeah, but Daniel, I come in there to you. If someone comes to us that needs a medical card, or some farmer that's in trouble with his grant, that's called parish pump stuff. It is survival for that person. But this is the media stuff that's typed out above in Dublin. Oh, they're all parish pump yahoos down the country.
I hadn't finished making my point, Michael. My point being is that I have long held an issue with the multi-seat constituency, because you've got politicians, particularly in rural constituencies, chasing funerals kind of round constituencies because they have to do it. But because politicians,
I don't do it.
Well, you're a rare exception, Michael. But an awful lot of politicians, particularly in parties, tend to kind of. But
I think
kind of a congestion.
The huge difference between Ireland and other European countries and internationally is there's a strong bond between the electorate and their local TDs, or whether you're a local TD or minister of state or senior minister, and that relationship is always going to be there. Of course, you have to have your national vision, your national plan. But when I hear people saying there's no plan, we have a 3-year plan in relation to 3 budgets to implement serious policies, and we have lots of vision. I want to reform the disability services, but I also want to invest in it. I want to do lots of other things in relation to education, health, housing, issues like that. I heard Patricia talked about earlier on. I'm absolutely very passionate about we need to turn the corner in relation to social housing and affordable housing.
But do you share Michael's frustration with getting things done?
I understand the frustration. But I mean, the honest answer to this, I love every single day I go into Dáil Éireann. It's a great honour for me. I believe in the old-fashioned ethos of public service. It's a great honour to be elected by the people. You go in
Would
there.
he be less frustrated if he'd gone in with you?
I can't. I think he would personally. I think he would. He'd be less frustrated, because at least what I say to myself, I set myself short-term targets. If I implement 4 or 5 of them, I take personal satisfaction out of that. Of course, you're going to be disillusioned when things don't happen when you want to happen them. And I had a few hits that way myself over the last few months. But to go back to just finish the point, Michael, I think for what you achieve and what you do and get on with, I think it's a great privilege, a great honour to be in there.
Claire, the one thing I agree with Daniel that there are some politicians that go to every funeral and do all this usual stuff, but the one thing, if you watch it and you watch politics in Ireland, you look at the 2 big parties. They're rowing up in all the constituencies at the moment, trying to make sure that they're seen here or seen there, or they're doing this or doing that, because they have a big finance purse behind them that they're doing all this. But what is it about? Let the public out there just think to themselves, what is politics, or what should it be about? Should it be about the party, or should it be about doing good in your area? And the big problem is Irish people and Irish voters needs to look at that and look at it here. And I know, and I'm not saying that all independents are the greatest thing since the sliced pan or anything. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we need to look at an honesty in politics and forget about this big sort of screen that's all around it and this big game that goes on.
You see, Michael Fitzmaurice is not a career politician. No. He has all the idealism of somebody who just happened to become a councillor and then by circumstances happened to become a TD. And part of what has bedevilled Irish politics for quite some time now is the career politician who's focused on office and all that kind of thing. I had reason, Claire, to read up on the life of Noel Brown for a piece I was writing in the Irish Times over Christmas.
I saw it, yeah.
And this idealism, whether you agreed or disagreed with him, but it was born out of idealism. The people who founded the state and subsequently, some of them got it very badly wrong, but they were idealists. And the new politics is born out of opportunism and a self-serving careerism.
I have to strongly disagree.
That's not to take from some of the contributions of individuals involved.
There's a lot of visionary there. If you ever sit down, Michael, which I'm sure you did in the past, if you take the Independent Alliance Charter for Change and policies, there's vision there, there's idealism there. Well, don't say to me when you talk about the great Noel Brown in relation to that aspect of the thing. I was a great admirer of the late Noel Brown. He was represented Dublin North Central as now Dublin Bay North. So there's a strong tradition of the independent radical voice in our area, like the great Sean Dublin Bay Loftus as well. We are practical politicians. We also have a vision and a plan for our country. We love public service, and what's wrong with that? When I get, for example, this 2017, I see 11,000 children who are on the domiciliary care allowance getting a medical card. That to me is a big step in the right direction towards bringing a more equitable health services and bringing forward the rights of children.
The arrangement
you can have practical politics, you have vision, you have passion, you have courage, and that's what we're about.
I'm not taking for that, but the arrangement between Fianna Fáil and this government is fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, but the one thing I would say, if we're all so interested in resolving everything in the programme for government, and this is one thing, Finney, and I will say to you, and it was talked about nearly every day within the talks, there are probably 45,000 people going to lose their houses this year coming. We had talked within when we were in at the programme for government about bringing a one-stop shop in and making sure that people had to have gone through that and that the banks were made split the mortgage or give mortgage to rent. If we don't do that in the next couple of months and ram it through, if we have to ram it through, if we don't do that, we are going to have more people on the television that are homeless right around this country. That's what I call politics, doing things quick and getting on with it.
Okay. And I believe Kevin Boxer-Morton is very involved in that issue at the moment.
Okay, was walking by a radio, says a listener, and stopped to hear who was singing live on RT Radio 1. That Daniel McConnell chap has some voice. Very nice. Very nice to hear that. Enda will remain as Taoiseach.
We're not here.
Yeah, lots of other people said you were wonderful too. We'll find those messages present.
We really do.
Enda will remain as Taoiseach until he takes over from Michael D. Higgins as President of Ireland in 2018. We might get another programme out of that now down the line. So now it's time to hear from Senator Fintan Warfield, a professional, as we said. Fintan, what are you going to sing for us?
I'm going to sing a song called Van Fágin.
Okay. Are you all set to go there?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you also to Michael Fitzmaurice, to Finian McGrath, Daniel McConnell, Patricia King, and to Michael O'Regan, who didn't sing but brought us his words of wisdom. And Jim Sheridan was our musical director today. Thank you very much indeed. Happy New Year to you all. We're back here after